podcast. Just wanted to say that I can't help out right now because I'm stuck in some kind of strange, weird scenario which I can't really go into right now. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to touch base with you soon. Bye!
Okay then, I guess I'm recording episode 56 tomorrow. By myself. Best get rest.
First story we are going to cover today is called Rusty to the Rescue.
Like, I absolutely adore. I'm not generous enough to even give it a 2. We're going 1.5 over.
God. I think you've broken Connor.
Just because I've given it that 1.5 and you want to give it that other point.
Hi, Connor. I've missed you so much.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are in the world. My name is Connor Jonas and you're listening to the Right on Track podcast, the show where we talk everything Thomas and Friends and the Railway series, continuing with our reviews of Series 7 today. Now, normally I'm joined by my two wonderful co-hosts, the tall-bearded Tom Denham and the pedantic critic Tom Parry. However, Denham is off trapezing around the world, and Parry's currently busy, which means I either had to do this alone, or I needed to get someone to come and help me out. So, acting as my co-host for the foreseeable future, it's M.
Hi, Connor.
Hi, M. For those that don't know, M was a guest host on the podcast before, back in episode 29. And in that episode...
We made some memories.
We made some memories and nightmares. We reviewed Rusty to the Rescue, one of my all-time favourite episodes.
One of my least favourite episodes ever.
And we butted heads there, so this should be fun. Now, M...
Yes, Connor.
What episodes are we covering today?
So today, we're going to be looking at 3 of probably my more favourite episodes, especially out of Series 7. We'll be looking at Peace and Quiet, Fergus Breaks the Rules, and Bulgy Rides Again.
With new characters, returning characters galore. So, with that, we're going to dive right into Peace and Quiet, where we're being introduced to a brand new 10-driven wheel engine on Sodor to help during the busy days.
The Fat Controller brought in a new engine to help with the heavy workload. He was long and had 10 drive wheels. He looked very strong. This is Murdoch. He's going to be pulling freight on the main line. Ahoy, Murdoch! Shouted Salty. Welcome, Murdoch, called Harvey. You're the biggest engine I've ever seen, cried Thomas. You're a chatty lot, Murdoch said quietly.
Now, M, I don't know about you when you meet people for the first time, but when you meet someone, they're like, hey, hi M, nice to meet you. What is your first response when someone says, hi, nice to meet you? Welcome.
Usually it's not turning around and sounding, like you just want everything to be quiet all the time. Usually I'll try and introduce myself and be friendly.
Hi, I'm Murdoch. I'm an engine here to help out. You don't immediately go, you're a chatty lot, and just saunter off.
No, you wouldn't. It shows a bit of personality there, though. It shows... I guess, to me, it shows that, he's here to just put his head down and get straight to work. He's not here for the banter. He's not here to listen to stories.
No.
He's just here to get the job done, and at the end of the day, that's all he'd want to do, and he'd prefer to do it quietly if possible.
Yeah, and that exactly describes who Murdoch is. So, Murdoch, he has already technically appeared in the previous Series 7 episode Something Fishy. However, this is his introduction. He is based on a BR Standard Class 9F built somewhere between 1954 and 1960. He's got a dull orange livery with green-red lining and his name on a red nameplate in gold. And that nameplate is on his smoke deflectors. In concept art, it was originally painted a much richer maroon colour, but that was most likely scrapped because it was too similar to another Series 7 newbie, Arthur. Now, he's not just unique, Murdoch, for being such a large engine. In fact, a 210 wheel configuration, 2 wheels followed by 10 wheels behind him, which is the largest in the series so far. But he's also the first engine to feature smoke deflectors.
Yeah, and funnily enough, with the positioning of his smoke deflectors, it's a lot different to the 9Fs, as usually they're sitting right on the edge of the running board, but on Murdoch, they've actually been pushed closer to his face. Now, I feel that personally makes him feel a little bit closed off. It kind of reflects his personality of quiet and just here to get the job done. He's got a narrow focus of, I want to get this done. I feel like that them bringing the smoke deflectors in kind of reflects that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you kind of get the same vibe.
The way I saw it was that they didn't want a great big panel in their design of a character.
That's a very big potential, yes.
Made it smaller. So, for those that don't know what smoke deflectors are, in the UK they're called blinkers, elephant ears in the US, or in South Australia they're called valances, which is weird. The metal plates attached to an engine smoke box, and the job is to lift the smoke up and away from the engine when it's travelling at speed, so that the driver inside the cab can have much better visibility.
Yeah.
So he's unique in that, but he also has a very discernible trait about Murdoch that comes across in this episode, and it's pigeonholed him in this box as to who Murdoch is. So, before we get into that, M, would you like to give a brief synopsis of the episode? What occurs?
So, in the beginning, we see Henry on a flying kipper. I think the footage is from Fish, actually.
Yes.
It's lovely to see throwbacks like that. Big fan. So we open with a scene of Henry on the flying kipper, and then it moves on to introduce Murdoch, as we've heard there. Essentially, the story revolves around his first couple of days on the island, as far as I can figure out. From looking at it, you've got the first day where he does his work, but he doesn't get any peace and quiet. Like, he likes the serenity, he likes the calm. He doesn't get that in the first episode. He's only seen at the docks and in the heavy industrial area set before returning to Knapford Sheds. There he meets Salty and Harvey again. And essentially you get the kind of feeling that Murdoch really doesn't want to chat, because Salty and Harvey start asking him questions like, what's the biggest train you've ever hauled? Have you worked Marseille, which is a French harbour town?
Marseille.
Marseille, sorry.
Yes.
I appreciate that. But Murdoch turns around and says, I don't want to be stuck in here with chatterboxes. And Salty and Harvey kind of get the feeling that that's rude, and actually Harvey mentions no need to be rude. The next day, Murdoch's once again seen on a very heavy goods train, and he runs through the countryside this time. I really love this scene with him passing Sudrian Castle.
Oh, it is an absolutely stunning shot, that.
It just, for me, it reflects that peacefulness that Murdoch really likes.
Mm-hmm. But another thing is that shot of Sudbury Castle, big wide shot where you see the engines passing by, that's been a kind of shot that we've seen since series 1 of the show.
Indeed.
And here, it's so vibrant and green and beautiful, and then just having this massive goods train being pulled by a big, strong orange engine. It's such a sight.
I feel that the scene is very photogenic. Looking from a bit of a photography kind of point. It's framed either side by trees, and I'm pretty sure it reflects the rule of thirds, which is usually you've got 3/3 in a shot, both going vertically and horizontally. Anyway, so Murdoch's seen passing Sudbury Castle when he has to pull up because of some sheep on the line. Now, Murdoch's driver and fireman have a discussion, and Murdoch's driver ends up going and phoning for help. So what happens is the Fat Controller gets the call, or Sir Topham Hatt. He gets the call, and he immediately arranges for Toby to get the farmer and take the farmer to where Murdoch is stranded. So Toby sees Murdoch. Toby meets Murdoch, sorry. And the farmer does his work. Murdoch eventually proceeds on his way. You can see the smile on his face as he proceeds through past the sheep. And returns to the shed that evening. But before anyone else says anything back at the sheds, Murdoch actually apologizes for being cross. Especially after he's ended up being stuck with some sheep that wouldn't be quiet for quite a while. And then the episode closes with a view of Salty, Harvey, and Murdoch all in Knapford sheds as Salty starts to retell a story.
The end.
For some reason, everything seems to remind Salty of a story, I've noticed.
It's one of Salty's traits.
It is, but it's a lovely trait.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, this episode, it's... At its core, it's very simple. New engine, likes the quiet, doesn't find quiet, and then when he's enduring the quiet, he comes across something loud and noisy that he can't leave. And then at the end, everything's reconciled.
Exactly. And it's just... I don't know what it is, but I've always had a soft spot for Murdoch. Like, a big, heavy goods engine, because that's what the 9Fs were built for. Big, heavy goods engine that is a quiet type. I really have an appreciation for that.
Yes, meanwhile, I am very loud, very fast, very energetic. So...
you definitely are.
What I feel this episode does, though, that takes it that extra step further, is that it has this brand new character. Unlikable. He's being rude to these other engines, and whilst you may sympathise with him because he can't find a quiet spot, he is actually being rude to everyone. He's
really
not
is.
saying hello, and then at the very, very end of the episode, the first thing he does is he apologise. And it's strange because we've got this story which is almost from the antagonist's point of view.
Yeah. I do respect him apologising. Like, that takes a lot of gusto. And I have a feeling that sitting with those sheep for however long he did...
Oh, yeah.
That really must have made him realize, like, it's not so bad. Like,
yeah.
getting
Maybe.
peace and quiet every now and again's nice, but also interacting with others and, you know, that friendly banter's also nice as well. I have a feeling that Murdoch kind of saw a bit of, like, sense when he encountered the sheep.
Maybe. But, like, hands down, Paul Larson did a fantastic job writing this episode.
Oh, indeed. I agree.
Now, there's a note here I've got for one of my favourite moments of this episode, and it's so short and sweet. Not even sweet, but you may not notice it. But as Murdoch is waiting, and before they call for help, the driver and fireman of Murdoch try to chase the sheep away. They chase them to one side of the line, They chase them to the other side of the line, And during those little bits of narration of they chase them to one side and the other, you just get a close-up of Murdoch's face, and you just watch his eyes slowly move from one side to the other. And I love that little detail there, because of course there isn't much movement that we do see in the show. We see the engines moving, we see the eyes moving, and then any other movement is something such as maybe smoke, maybe a windmill, maybe a bit of running water. Unless it's some kind of engine, there's barely any movement. And I love how, in order to illustrate the fireman and driver running from one side of the line to the other, they just use Murdoch's eyes. And it's so well done, and I love that.
It is quite a lovely little thing to do. It's subtle nods like that really make it.
Now, I've done some fact checking for this episode.
Yep.
Because you mentioned, as Murdoch is in his shed for the first time, he's inundated with questions from Salty and Harvey. You mentioned how Salty asked if he ever worked in Marseille. Now, Marseille city, southern France, known for its large harbour.
Yeah.
Of course, Salty knows about harbours. And I double-checked, no BR Standard 9F ever worked there. So
I wouldn't think so. It's a very strange place to send a British Railways 9F. Especially because they were built so late in the piece.
Exactly.
If they were built, say, 10, 15 years earlier, I could potentially see it. But looking at it, it's just, I don't see it happening.
And Harvey asked the question, what's the longest train you've ever pulled? Now, I've covered in the episode of The World's Strongest Engine, the longest trains in the world. And whilst I wasn't able to find the longest in length pulled by 9F, I was able to find the heaviest train pulled by 9F.
How heavy was that one?
Murdoch's Basis, 9F, an engine of its class called Black Prince, actually holds the record in England, Scotland and Wales for the heaviest steam haul train.
Oh, nice.
Which was a whopping 2,233,271 kilograms.
What's that in tonnage? I'm just curious.
Yeah, in imperial, it's 2,198 tons. In metric, it's 1,993.992 tons.
Okay.
Or it's also 4,923,520 pounds. So it's quite a heavy train, which is the heaviest. Maybe Murdoch didn't pull that train, but it's the heaviest he could have pulled.
Speaking of the shed scene,
yes,
I actually have a little bit of an interesting fact about that scene.
Oh, okay.
When the camera zooms in on Murdoch's his cross or grumpy face. I'm not sure what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a look to the left at Harvey, you don't see much of Harvey. But he doesn't have a faceplate on.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this only in like some releases or?
Well, I could see it in the UK narration, so with Michael Angelis. I couldn't.
Oh, wow.
I don't know about the American release.
Yeah, or the
But
at-home releases. But wow.
At least with the Michael Angelis one, as far as I can see, like it's a very small amount of what would be face. So it could just be the camera's not picking up the grey as well. But it does seem to look like it's the same black as on the side of Harvey's smoke box.
Oh, that's weird. What?
Would you like another little piece of trivia from this episode?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, there's actually a couple. Arthur appears the first night behind Emily.
Yes.
In the second...
In the far right of the shed, yes.
Yep. The second night he's not there and it's only Emily.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when we've got the sheep in front of Murdoch, the amount of black sheep keep changing throughout the scenes with the flock.
I did think that. Because I was like, oh, there's plenty of black sheep there.
Yeah.
Were there that many before?
It does change. It's just...
I can just now imagine on how originally just started out with Murdoch there, with 3 sheep. And he's like, this isn't so bad. And all of a sudden, meh. And a new sheep's appeared.
Dear.
They start duplicating. And soon, there's just a tidal wave of woolen lamb just surrounding him.
That's a bit of a crazy dream there.
Listen, okay, I had a crazy nightmare last night. Just we're not getting into it. You were there, yeah. I was reliving.
Oh, was this reliving Rusty to the rescue?
I was, okay, but with that, let's move on to ratings.
Okay, I'd like you to rate this one first.
You're new at this. You're new at rating. Don't worry.
I know.
Don't worry. So, Peace and Quiet. Story-wise, it isn't too creative.
No,
but
I'll give you that.
It is creative enough to get me interested. It's got some brilliant character development in the first episode of Murdoch, which, by the way, Murdoch as a character, fantastic. There are so many characters here who are loud and abrasive and have got such energy and force behind them. It's so good to have a quiet character, one who shies away from all the attention and noise and is just sort of to himself. I
Indeed.
really like that.
Yeah.
His model is brilliant. I especially love the colour, because orange is my favourite colour. Then the model work throughout is beautiful, especially that shot you pointed out of Sudbury Castle M.
It's one of my favourite. Like, every time I see it, it's so peaceful.
Yeah. So, with that, all considered, I'm going to give it an 8.
Nice. So I would be very inclined to match you there, just because I love Murdoch as a character, as an engine basis. I do also believe that, it wasn't the most creative story, but it's still enough to drag you in. And yeah, I personally would also give it an 8.
We're not breaking any new ground with ratings.
No.
But we will be breaking things soon, especially for the next episode where Fergus breaks the rules. And as Fergus has been working at the cement works, some trouble has oiled up beside him.
Later, Diesel was being careless. Not like that, snapped Fergus. Do it right. Don't interfere, sneered Diesel. You don't know the rules, retorted Fergus. Diesel was very annoyed with Fergus and started plotting a devious plan.
Well, I wonder what Diesel's plan could be there.
I'm sure he's just going to have a nice, sensible conversation with Fergus and not send him off somewhere to get him scrapped, killed, or potentially mutilated. And they're just going to end things on a nice, easy, simple term. Have a good conversation. Talk it out.
Yeah, don't think you've seen enough stories with Diesel in them then.
Okay, so, why don't you tell me what happens then?
Okay, so, as we can see at the start, we got a lovely portrait of the cement works with Fergus in it. It's in a sepia tone. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. And we hear about how Fergus is the pride of the cement works. But he does have the attitude of his way is correct, and you must always do it right.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily his way. He's just such a stickler for the rules, Fergus, that any deviation from those set boundaries and systems and processes, he will go do it right.
Yeah, the way he says it though, because he turns around and he says, "Not like that, do it right." It reminds me of a certain other engine we've been introduced to in Duck, and the Great Western Way.
Yes.
It's a very much similar attitude. So when I hear Fergus say, "Not like that, do it right," I just hear Duck mentioning the Great Western Way. Anyway, so we have Diesel come in to help at the cement works because Sir Topham Hatt sent for him. And he's shunting the trucks around roughly. Hence why we hear Fergus turn around and say, "Not like that, do it right." After that, Diesel starts to come up with one of his schemes, one of his plans, and he does mention to Fergus, "I'm better than you," when he mentions that supposedly Sir Topham Hatt's ordered Fergus to go work at the smelter's yard, and he's to remain there forever. So Fergus, not wanting to break any rules, not wanting to let anyone down, he chuffs off to the smelter's yard. Once he's there, he gets inside and he stops. He actually stops just near a scrap model of Thomas, right next to the track he's on. Once he stops, the big doors open with the red glow and the smoke and the steam. And out from those doors come Iron Harry and Iron Bert.
And I will say that appearance and the way that they arrive in the scene, Harry and Bert, the scrap diesels as they're described, is absolutely amazing. Because first you just see their silhouettes in the red light, and they burst through the smoke and the fog as they're just rolling up alongside Fergus before
Fergus turns around and, for the first time ever, he breaks the rules and he leaves.
He runs away.
He runs away and he goes hiding.
Yes.
So in the following scenes, we see him up near Callan Castle, and along the castle lock causeway. That's also another really beautiful shot that I love. Eventually, he ends up at the Maithwaite Quarry Mine, as the set's called. And when it's been heard that Fergus has gone missing, Sir Topham Hatt sends Thomas to go look. Thomas searches a few different lines. He's gone up and down, looking all over for one of his friends, eventually arriving at the Maithwaite quarry mine and finding Fergus. The interesting thing for me here, before I finish this story, is instead of getting Thomas to take Fergus straight back to the cement works, he meets them at the smelter's yard instead.
Weird choice.
It's a very weird choice, and it confuses me a bit, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's to pull the story out a little bit longer. I don't know. Anyway, Thomas takes Fergus back. I'm assuming that Fergus has run out of steam, or he's just cold, or he's just tired. Thomas helps him back to the smelters, and Sir Topham Hatt asks Fergus to explain himself. Fergus tells him what's happened, and he turns around and says, "I'll send Diesel to the smelters, and you can go back to the cement works tomorrow."
Yeah.
Why not
Now-
send him back tonight?
Yeah, and this is where my big question of the episode here is, first of all, why'd they go back to the smelters?
Yep.
Because did Sir Topham ever send? Like, was it just a lie made up by Diesel for Fergus to be sent to the smelters?
Was
and
there
work
some
there?
truth in it?
Or was there some truth? Because they're actually working there at the smelters, has been brought back to the smelters, where Sir Topham's there to meet them. And then Sir Topham says that I'll send Diesel to the smelters. Which means that work does need to be done there. Which hints that maybe his thing was to send Diesel to the smelters, but Diesel heard that and went, nah, I'm changing that. The smelters, it's hot, it's sweaty, it's sticky, don't like it.
Disgusting, it's full of
I'd
scrap.
much rather work in, like, a clean concrete factory. So we'll send the little blue traction engine off, especially because he annoyed me. And I don't really understand that. But, yeah. So Fergus Breaks the Rules, also known as Thompson the Search for Fergus in some releases by Jan Page. It has got a few interesting notes about it. For example,
Indeed.
it's the first and last appearance of the Cement Works in an episode.
Yep, sure
it
is.
had quote-unquote previously appeared in some deleted scenes, and it would later appear in a 9th series learning segment. However, in terms of actual episodes, only time we see it is here. This is also the only Series 7 speaking role of Diesel, and despite him only saying a mere handful of lines that you can only count on, like, one hand, he immediately comes in, he does what he does best, and then he immediately does a scheme.
Indeed.
It's efficient. This is Diesel's most efficient story. It's also the only Series 7 speaking role of Ari and Bert, the Scrap Diesels.
It's actually their first and only appearance.
Yes, in Series 7 as well. And sadly, this is the last appearance we will ever have of Fergus.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Really?
I like Fergus, don't get me wrong. But it's just, for me, it's that not like that do it right attitude, which is too similar to Ducks. It's two ways of doing it, the wrong way and the Great Western way.
Fair.
That's the
Fair.
only reason I'm not too disappointed. Apart from that, I love Fergus. He's a cute little, based on an Aveling Porter
Blue Circle.
traction engine. Yep.
Yes.
And he's a gorgeous little engine. I love his whistle too.
It's a good whistle.
A couple other interesting little tidbits about this episode. So I mentioned that Thomas, there was a scrap model of Thomas on the track.
Yes.
Like right next to the track that Fergus pulls up on.
When Thomas, in fact, passes right by it when he pulls Fergus in.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a few other scrap models that are used there.
Mm-hmm.
On the outside, just before / just after Fergus enters and leaves, on the left there's a scrap James. On the right there's a scrap Gordon. And apparently, somewhere in there, there's a scrap Toad and a scrap Donald or Douglas.
Yeah.
Another little interesting thing is going back to the whole peace and quiet with Harvey missing a face.
Mm-hmm.
In Fergus Breaks the Rules, when the shed doors are opened to the main part of the smelters, and just before Iron Harry and Bert's shadow appears, you can see a crew member's hand lift up, at least in the Michael Angelis UK release.
Ooh.
So it's as if they were holding the models back to get them straight up to speed instead of winding them up like a model train set would.
Huh.
But there you go.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
I like that.
I love seeing these little, I guess you could call them goofs, but like these little bits that just are so minute, but they're interesting. It shows that, it was part of the model series. It wasn't later on down the track.
Yeah. Yeah, it proved that there were people behind this.
Yeah.
So, Fergus Breaks the Rules. It's also the last episode until the 12th series where a standard gauge, non-Steam Team character is the lead.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and it really does show how we're in that time in Thomas's story in the world of Sodor, where it's becoming more about marketing.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
We heard it previously when Parry Lachlan and I covered Toby's Windmill, and Denham mentioned where the windmill was very much made for marketing. And it's true, it got like 6 different kinds of marketing out there and products. And that's something that we will see going forward in almost every story. There was something attached to it. And attached to this episode was a song, actually. Based on Fergus's theme and the events of this episode, composed by Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell, was the song There Once Was an Engine Who Ran Away. One of my favourites out there. It's I don't know, it's slightly jazzy. And it's the only song in any of the Thomas songs that is sung by Mike O'Donnell.
Was that actually sung by Mike O'Donnell?
Yeah.
That's
previous
lovely.
songs that would have a adult voice in it would be Junior Campbell.
Okay.
And if not Junior Campbell, it would be just the children singing.
Yeah.
But this is the only one with Mike O'Donnell. I can see he nailed it in the song. I love it. And
it's a lovely song. Like,
oh yeah,
I like listening to it. I don't necessarily like watching the video for it.
I feel the video's got some cool large scale shots of Fergus though.
Yeah,
maybe not even large scale, but close up. It's worth it. But we're not reviewing There Once Was an Engine Who Ran Away. We're focusing. We're focusing on the episode Fergus Breaks the Rules.
Indeed.
And we're doing our ratings and review on that. And I believe
Yes.
that's what we can move to next.
Okay. So, I think for a Series 7 episode, it's the last time, I think you said it was the only time we see the cement works.
Yes.
It's the last time we see Fergus.
Correct.
It's the only appearance of Diesel, Harry, and Bert. It makes it, at least in Series 7, it makes it an interesting episode. I can't say that I love it, but I can't say I hate it either. Like, again, Fergus is an interesting character for me, apart from that opinion of not like that, do it right. I would have to say that this episode, the way it's put together, and just the couple of things that really confuse us about Thomas and Fergus going back to the smelter instead of getting sent to the cement works, and Fergus not being able to return home that night, it does let it down a bit for me. And so I'll probably only give this episode a 5 out of 10.
Ooh, okay. So, I'm not straying too far from you, but I've got much different reasoning.
Okay.
Because whilst there are those questions, like him going back the next day, that doesn't bother me. His driver's tired, it's late at night, he's just going to be put up in a shed nearby. It doesn't bother me too much. The question is, like, was there truth behind what was being said? But that can be all explained with theories.
Indeed.
This episode I enjoy. I really do enjoy it. However, it leaves me wanting more. And it's great for stories to want you wanting more if they're following a continuous storyline. When we're dealing with short stories like this, you don't want to finish it and leave the watchers, listeners, readers to go, I want more of that. Because the next story is not going to be anything like it.
And
So
the other thing is, you're not going to see those characters. Like, you're not going to see some characters again. You don't get the character development you'd love to see.
Exactly. Ideally, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more Fergus-Diesel interaction. A little bit more Fergus running away.
Yep.
And a little bit of an in-between where we see Diesel being ridiculed. Diesel alone at the cement works, and perhaps Thomas going by looking for Fergus, or the Fat Controller learning that Diesel was up to it and scolding Diesel. I would like just a little bit more, because right now it feels like there's more to the story. It's unfinished. So with that, I'm going to give it a 6.
Okay. So we weren't that far off from each other.
We weren't that far off. Not at all. Not at all. I feel that there could be a few more Diesel scenes. I really like Diesel's character at times. Like, he's a bad guy, but he's a good bad guy. It's delightful when he goes on screen. Which leads us to our musical interlude. Delightful Diesel. Composed by Sudrian Afro, which is a remix of Diesel's theme, and Benny King's Stand By Me. You're listening to the Right on Track podcast.
that was Delightful Diesel by Sudrian Afro, which was a remix of Diesel's theme, and Benny King's Stand By Me, an absolute wonderful track. So I'm Em, you're listening to the Right on Track podcast with Connor, and now we're going to be reviewing the episode Bulgy Rides Again, where it seems that the Fat Controller has a bit of a double-decker problem.
Double-decker problem. This gave the Fat Controller an idea. He drove straight to Bulgy's field. Bulgy is a double-decker bus. He was turned into a henhouse after he caused a silly accident. Good news, Bulgy. I'm putting you back on the road.
Thank you, sir. I'll be the best boss ever.
Bulgy never liked being a henhouse anyway. The next day, he went to the foundry.
Yes, Bulgy's got... Sorry about that. Yes, Bulgy is now back on the road once more. So, Bulgy rides again. It's summertime on the railway, and they've got lots of summer tourists. However, both Thomas and Emily are in the works, so they've got more people and less engines. So, a bit of a double-decker problem, which gives the Fat Controller an idea to reinstate Bulgy onto the roads. So, Bulgy, after he's been all fixed all the way back up in a wonderful coat of red again, that even impresses James. He spends the night in his field before he goes out once more to begin his life again as a railway bus.
And no more anti-Rail League advertising either.
You say that. You say there's no more anti-Rail League, but someone kept the Free the Road sign on top of Bulgy.
I have noticed that.
There's no join the anti-Rail League, but there's still Free the Roads, which I don't know why. It's very anti-railway. Here's a railway bus. Anyways, so, as he's going about with his first round of passengers, he's driving wonderfully smoothly. It's a dream. However, as he tries to overtake Trevor and nearly collides into Tom Tipper the postman, he startles the stowaways that snuck on board him during the night, a group of his old chickens, when he used to be a henhouse, snuck aboard him when he was sleeping in the field, and now they're causing a mess. They're clucking, passengers are screaming, feathers are flying everywhere, people want to get off the bus and tell the Fat Controller what a bad railway it is. Sent back to the works in disgrace.
Silly heads, silly passengers, you can have them both.
Exactly, Em. And Emily reminds Bulgy that the farmer still needs help with his vegetables.
A vegetable bus? That's not such a bad idea.
So, I love the impression, it's brilliant.
Thank you.
So, Bulgy is then reworked once more and is given permission to be the island's only mobile vegetable stand. His lower deck has been converted to have a stall and canopy, rather dangerous one, mind you. You need to balance on a small, thin wooden bench to look into it. The upper deck is probably turned into storage and is painted a nice sort of dark green. He's now a mobile vegetable stand.
A mobile grocery store is what it actually says.
Grocery store.
Yeah.
And that is The Story of Bulgy Rides Again by Brian Truman.
Now, tell me, Connor, have you noticed what he's still got on him, even after he's been turned into a vegetable bus?
Has he still got the Free the Road sign?
He sure does.
You see, okay, this episode, it is recognisable. a bus being turned into a stand, chickens throwing a muck inside a bus. It's very memorable.
It's got everything you could want and more.
Exactly. Yet for some reason, people can't seem to remember to get rid of the Free the Road sign aboard Bulgy. This episode, it's a good episode, but there's so many little questions it brings up for me. All these little things. For example, first of all, the chickens have climbed into the luggage racks.
Yep. They
Okay.
sure have.
And then he's been driving about for, I would say, at least 30 minutes with multiple passengers, if not a few hours. And for some reason, no one has noticed the chickens sleeping in the luggage racks.
You see, I would have thought that the driver would have gone through and made sure that everything was A-okay with Bulgy, you know, going through, checking the luggage
Exactly.
racks, making sure all the floors are clean, as he's been sitting in the same field with the same hens.
Yeah, exactly. And then all the passengers have hopped on board, and none of them have looked up. None of them's noticed the chickens asleep in all the luggage racks above them. Did no one have any luggage? Did all the mass amount of tourists to the island that needed a new bus replacement not have any luggage whatsoever?
Clearly not.
It's well, clearly not. It seems improbable, extremely improbable. But apparently, that's the case. But by far, one of the most noticeable things about this episode is the voice of Bulgy.
He has developed a bit of a nasally voice. However, it's only appeared in the UK narration.
Yes, it suits Bulgy. He's got a great big honking nose, but it's sometimes really hard to understand.
I do like it, and it is fun to imitate, you know.
I argue that it's a lot better than Michael Brandon's narration, though. I went and listened to Michael Brandon's narration in this episode just because I was seeing if there was an alternative to the nasal voice. And it's worse. There's no nasal, but it's got no direction. It starts off with, "Vegetables, I'm going to carry passengers."
Wait, you've just changed your pitch there and tone completely.
Yes, it starts with, "I'm going to carry passengers." It's got no direction.
I'm going to fly away now.
It goes up for no reason. It emphasizes random things. It starts off deep but goes high. I don't know what on earth has happened to Bulgy during those years as a hen. But obviously in the US narration, the chickens have been pecking at his undercarriage and exhaust because he is not doing fine.
No.
He is panicking. He tried to chew on straws in the US narration like a proper farmer, but they just swallowed them and got stuck down there. The voices suit the characters, but neither of them, I would say, are good. They suit, but they aren't good, I feel. It's there.
I feel that the UK narration's Bulgy actually suits him a lot more. Like, I would say that it suits.
Oh,
That's my personal
it suits, but it's not good. Like, the best narration of Bulgy we got was in the original Series 3 narration of Bulgy. Which leads me to the next thing, because this episode, Bulgy Rides Again, I've been looking forward to for such a long time. Not only because Bulgy's such a good character, but because all the way back when we were reviewing Series 3, I came across this trivia fact.
Yeah.
That the Series 3 episode Bulgy, 75, and his next, and the next time we hear from him is in Bulgy Rides Again, is exactly 100 episodes later in episode 175.
That's gotta be something planned, surely.
Was it planned? Was it coincidence? Because, like, it doesn't seem planned.
Coincidence? I think not.
Like, it seems too good to be a coincidence.
It
could be
does.
that they filmed it and someone was like, huh, we're actually nearing the 100th episode. Why don't we shuffle it round for it just to be the 100th? It doesn't feel planned going in to bring him back 100 episodes later.
No, and the other thing I have noticed, having a bit of a look at each of the episodes on the wiki, is that a lot of Series 7 has been filmed out of order.
Yes.
So, it could very well be, as you've stated, they could have filmed it earlier and then realised, oh, it's 100 episodes since Bulgy appeared, why not shuffle it around? And they could very well have done that.
And, like, I mean, the 3 episodes that we've reviewed today, first you've got one about a new engine who's all on the goods line.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got a small sort of branch line traction engine who travels from cement work to smelter to, I think you said, the Maithwaite Quarry or something?
Yeah, the Maithwaite Quarry mine.
Yeah. And now we've got a bus who travels on the roads to unnamed locations.
So, I've got a couple of interesting facts, like I have for the rest of the episodes we've looked at today.
Okay. Throw them at me.
So, when Bulgy is kept in his old field overnight before he does his first passenger run, you see an engine in the background on a branch line train.
Yeah, pulling the post train. Isn't that James?
It's not the post train, and it's not James, but you're on the right track with the colour. It's Arthur.
Yes.
So, something I would have thought, personally, is... was there no space in the bus depot for Bulgy?
Yeah, because why does he need to sleep in the field again? Like, even if there is room nowhere else in the bus depot, if they've got no room for a double-decker bus, which would mean they'll need double-decker sheds.
Not necessarily. He could have been parked outside.
Yeah, exactly. Why couldn't he just park outside or be left at the works overnight?
So, it could very well have been that that's where Bulgy's driver lived. We don't know. The other idea I had was, is it closer to the start of his run? Does it make it easier not to backtrack? There's a lot of questions that putting him back in the field does raise, but it kind of seems like there might be answers we just don't know.
Yeah, like, to me, it very much feels like the answer is plot.
I have a feeling you're right, simply because of the hens.
Yeah, and then with the hens afterwards not being noticed...
Another little bit of interesting information is it's 100 episodes since Bulgy, we actually get the flashback and the reminder of what happened to Bulgy in the fact he got stuck under the bridge, and that's why he was withdrawn and put into the field.
Yeah, it's actually really good, because rarely in the show do we get proper flashback sequences anymore.
No, and
to provide context.
It's been so long since I watched it, the Series 3 episode Bulgy, that it's very nice to have that refresher.
I feel it wasn't more so as a refresher as to here's this previous episode, but I feel it was more so done as here's a character that's a bus, and here is why they're in a field.
I mean...
But Bulgy is very much being treated as a new character.
He is. It does... Like, for those that have watched Series 3 prior to this, though, it feels like he returns even though his voice changes, and it seems like his attitude changes a bit, too.
He's a bit more chatty with the engines.
He's also seeming to be a lot more... yes, I will do this. It means I get out of this field and away from the hens again.
It's actually served him well.
Indeed.
His time in the field. However many decades it may have been.
So, the last couple of little trivia items I've got is this is the last time we'll see or hear Bulgy until at least Series 21.
Which is a while away.
We're sitting here in Series 7.
Yeah, like, consider what we've reviewed so far 3 times over, and then we see Bulgy again.
So, that's his next speaking role in...
Yes.
Unscheduled
Stops.
The 21st series episode, Unscheduled Stops. And it's the last time that he stars as, I'm assuming, one of the main characters in the story, until the 23rd series episode, Free the Roads.
Yeah, this is his last starring role until that 23rd series episode, Free the Roads.
Indeed. I mean...
In full CGI.
Maybe that's why they left Free the Roads on him throughout the entire episode.
I highly doubt that they were planning that far ahead. Well, listen, okay? You're filling in for co-hosts. I know you're new to a lot of this reviewing thing. I'm gonna tell you now. The people who write these episodes are good, but they don't think that far ahead. Mattel isn't that smart to think that far ahead, Em.
Okay, maybe they're smart enough to look back.
You're smart enough in your heart to know that this is true. Have you got any other facts to tell us about Brian Truman's revisal of Bulgy?
There is actually one little bit. It is in one of the scenes of Bulgy when it's face on. I believe it's after the hens. It might have been before. But his face is crooked. It's his angry face is crooked. So I believe it's after the hens. You know, silly hens, silly passengers. You can have them both.
Yeah, ever so slightly.
So it's ever so slightly crooked. But also, during... I think it's when he says a vegetable bus. I believe you see one of the crew members' movements very subtly in his left-hand window.
Yes. Yeah, you see in the reflection of the window the movement that can only be a crew member.
Yeah.
Which I again love, because this is a human show.
Indeed. It's a show created by humans, and you can see that in some of the reflections. You just have to look hard enough sometimes.
Yeah. So, how do we rate these humans on their performance in Bulgy Rides Again, Em? What are you thinking?
I rate that one crew member that appeared in the window for like a brief second like a 7 out of 10 here. But the episode on a whole, I enjoy it. I love Bulgy's voice. As much as, you know, it might not be the best suited for him, I think it is. I love that we've seen essentially a recreation of the character we once saw. The attitude from the chicken field has changed. The time spending there has changed his attitude.
He's had a character arc.
He's had a character arc, and it's not a bad one. I quite like it. I have to give this episode, I reckon, another 8 out of 10.
Okay, then. This is where we split.
Don't let me down. Don't bring back Rusty to the rescue here and let me down.
I'm not. I didn't even mention that episode, Em. How dare you? So, this episode, it's great to see Bulgy again.
Yep.
He has had a nice off-screen character arc. But this episode, the entire premise of it leaves so many questions for me. How did no one notice the chickens at all? And whilst I can understand that they may need another bus, the entire issue of the episode was the chickens. In fact, this episode doesn't even have an ongoing issue. It's one issue. We need a solution to these passengers. Solution, Bulgy. Issue, there are chickens. Solution, don't have the chickens anymore. Don't become a bus. Issue, I don't have a job anymore. Solution, become a vegetable bus. It feels disjointed and one after another. So, I am afraid, and also, the new voice, it irks me.
Vegetable bus. That's not such a bad idea.
It's funny, it works, it's a great thing, but to me, it isn't Bulgy.
Connor, you can't do this to me, please.
So I'm afraid I'm not going too far. I'm just going 3 steps down the road and giving it a 5 out of 10.
Okay, I can live with that.
You can live with that.
I can live with that.
I'm not as cold-hearted as you once were. So,
it's okay.
I'm afraid with that, it brings us to the end of episode 56 of the Right on Track podcast. And we will return next week with more episodes. Em, what will we be reviewing?
So, next episode, we'll be looking at Harold and the Flying Horse, the grand opening, Best Dressed Engine, and Gordon and Spencer.
Ooh, looking forward to that last one. But until we get to reviewing those episodes, you can catch up with us with our various social media, such as our Twitter @OnTrackThomas, our Instagram TTTE_RightOnTrack,
or our Facebook at facebook.com/RightOnTrackThomasPodcast.
Or there is our email, rightontrackthomas@gmail.com, where you can send in questions or thoughts and ideas. But until that time comes, I'm still Connor.
I'm still M.
And this has been the Right on Track podcast. Adios.
Farewell.